And the government, of course.
Yeah, and the government of this country. All right, this one comes from Mike Victory, and he's saying, let's say you had $100,000 and you wanted to put it to work over the next 6 months. Now, that's pretty short term, but he's asking if you'd put it all in physical metals.
The answer is yes. I have put everything I have in physical metals. Look, I mean, you have to, again, think of it as savings, okay? It's not an investment. I'm not saying put it in because I think it will double. I'm not the stock investor anymore, the stock analyst saying, I think I have a target price of $2,000 or $2,500. I'm saying your money is now in savings that is in something that's depreciating in value and may depreciate significantly. If you put it in gold, think of it as the equivalent of having your money in a bank, but 20 years ago when it was safe and earned interest and inflation was less. You now need to think about protecting your cash, your money, but your money is no longer cash; it's gold.
Okay, and his follow-up question is, what is your recommended physical gold to silver proportion allocation for someone 35 years old?
I would say always to diversify. I mean, look, they're both going to go up in value over time. The only thing, especially for someone who's new in the sector, is to realize that silver, care of the gold cartel, no other reason, is a more volatile metal. So you're going to see bigger swings. And if you get nervous by that, if it makes you feel uncomfortable, then you probably want to have a higher weighting of gold. But all the factors I was talking about before should go into your decision as well. Do you think you may need to use it someday? Where do you want to store it? All that kind of thing. But generally speaking, the answer, I would say, start out as 50-50, maybe even more gold and silver, just so you get comfortable with the volatility of silver.
Okay, and this one is outside my wheelhouse, so I'll throw it to you. With the predicted blow-up of the COMEX and CME, besides sitting on physical bullion, is there any way to profit in these markets? This question is from Eric B., and he says he used to buy futures and put options but no longer trusts any exchange markets. Any way for him to leverage this fraud?
Well, I think he answered his own question. He doesn't trust it anymore. I don't trust it anymore. I'm a stock analyst and stock investor by career, by trade. I don't own one paper investment anymore. Excuse me, a tiny bit of the GTU. That's the gold fund, which I think of as cash. I mean, I don't trust anything. And my advice to people, I don't just say don't own mining shares. I don't say buy them. I don't say short them. I say don't buy stocks, bonds, don't short them. Anything in the paper system, you are going against powers that be. Either they can nail you on the short side by causing short squeezes, by buying futures up. They can nail you on the long side, as we've seen by anyone who owns mining shares or, frankly, anything. And there's always these market crashes that could come at any time. They could want one of these things to come so they can announce QE. So I would say stay out of paper markets, particularly derivatives like futures and options, which are 10 times riskier than stocks and bonds.
Yeah, you and I have talked about this before, as has Chris Duane and I just did an interview about this, and it's all about getting out of this criminally corrupt financial system, and so you're practicing what you preach. I got to say that's for absolutely sure. If you're completely outside of this system, Andy, most people can't say that.
Yeah, it's out of self-preservation.
Yeah, okay. This one comes from Hugo. I know how you're going to respond to this one. He says, what is your take on Mr. Sprott? I listen to him lots, but when looking at his deeds, he seems untrustworthy. He stated that he would not do a follow-up on PSLV and did it anyway. When his fund had high premiums, he dumped lots of his holdings to buy other stuff.
Well, I mean, if you're going to judge Eric Sprott by what he's done in PSLV, then you're out in left field. I mean, thank God for PSLV. PSLV almost pushed silver over $50 last year. It was their offering in November of 2010, which caused the cartel to step everything up on D-Day, and it's what caused silver to go up to $50 an ounce. And as far as the fund, look, the way these closed-end funds work, whether you're talking about the Sprott funds or the Spicer funds, that would be the Central Fund of Canada and the GTU. I mean, their job is to sell stock at a premium so that it becomes accretive. Okay, what I'm trying to say is, if they sell stock at a premium to the net asset value and then use that to buy gold and silver, that's accretive for shareholders. That's good over time. Now, the fact that the offering price goes up to it went up to a 35% premium earlier this year, that's not Eric Sprott's fault. The fact is, people were speculating that it was going to be one of the few places to actually be able to offtake some physical silver in time of need, because that's what's so good about the fund. And believe me, I can assure you that him and John Embry and their team were very worried about the pros and cons of it all, but realized that ultimately their goal is to build a big liquid fund. It's far more liquid now because of that. And look, if you bought it at a 35% premium, well, that's kind of like buying a numismatic coin. I mean, you're taking a big risk. Most people bought it at a 10% premium. It spiked up to 35, and they sold it at a 7 or 8% premium like they usually do. I thank God that Eric Sprott is out there, fighting in this way. He's one of the few people who puts his money where his mouth is. And as far as selling his shares, look, he owns a lot of the shares, and they were at a 35% premium. So he sold them, and he actually put them into mining stocks. So he stayed within the sector. Now, thank God for Eric Sprott. There's very few of us out here, very few people out there that are committed to the cause and commit with their own money.
Yeah, you and I have talked about that in the past, too, and we've both expressed our concern for his safety because he is taking on some of the vampires that run this world. He's taking on the Federal Reserve System and doing it with physical bullion that he's offering to the people. So you can kind of look at the man as a billionaire Robin Hood to some extent. They might be overstating it, but to question his honor, I think, is a little bit off base. This one comes from Praxis, and I'm going to try to paraphrase here. He basically is asking, are we looking at the next bond stock Ponzi frenzy, ultimately building up to the next financial weapons of mass destruction attack? What's your take on that? Everybody's piling into bonds. Nobody seems to be fearful of a default. Okay,
well, I would say that no one is piling into bonds. I mean, it's public knowledge that the government bought 61% of all public issuance. They said we bought 61% of all treasury bond issuance last year. And you know that it's more than that because all of a sudden you have these Caribbean banking centers and the bankrupt UK government somehow says that they're buying treasury bonds, which is a bunch of bull. I mean, they're buying everything in sight to keep the treasury, to keep the interest rates down. There is no one that is piling into bonds, especially at these kind of interest rates. As far as stocks, I mean, the volume, I write about this all the time, the volume in the stock market in general is at multi-year lows. And if you take out the HFT trading, there is no volume. And if you put the HFT back in, 25% of it is Goldman Sachs. So as far as I'm concerned, it's the government that is the market. The only stock I think that there are actually traders trading in is Apple, which is just going to destroy people, a $600 billion market cap for a gadget company. I mean, I'm not valuing Apple. I'm just saying that there's almost no stocks out there that anyone's actually buying. There's been retail outflows from the stock market for, I think, was it 57 out of the last 60 weeks or some ridiculous amount. No one's buying anything. It's just computers that are doing everything. There will be a crash, but when it happens, it'll probably be government initiated for whatever agenda they have.
Yeah, like the flash crash where the Dow lost 1,000 points in 7, 8, 9 minutes.
Yeah, it's the same thing every day, and I just put a piece out showing how it's the same every day, and I look, and sure enough, it's the same today. The government runs the stock market. I call it the Dow Jones Propaganda Average.
All right, this one comes from ARV UK, and he's talking about the British pound sterling having been strong here recently, pushing precious metals prices down for him, which is good news for him because he's stacking. He says, I'm expecting the British pound sterling here that it's going to fall hard soon due to the knock-on effects of the Eurozone crisis, and I'm doing what I can to prepare. Do you see that happening? Are we going to see the pound crash?
Well, they're all going to crash. I mean, the pound really hasn't moved that much. It's 162 right now. I think maybe it was 158 recently. So we're talking about a few cents. It's not like it's a giant move. Gold in euros, I don't really follow it in every currency, but I know that gold in euros is still only about 2% from its all-time high after all the smashing, and it's still sitting right up at its 200-day moving average, which is quite remarkable given all the attacks we've seen. Again, when it comes to currencies, like my friend called me today and he said, the dollar is breaking down. I'm going, I don't even watch the dollar anymore. I don't even think the government watches the dollar index anymore because everyone knows that no one cares about the exchange rate between the Great Britain pound and the dollar or the euro and the dollar. I mean, ultimately, it's going to go up against all currencies. It has gone up against all currencies, whether it's the pound, euro, Australian dollar. How about the Indian rupee? Has anyone watched that heading multi-year? I think it's almost all-time lows. They're reporting inflation higher than their GDP right now, overtly. So I wouldn't worry about exchange rates at all. I just worry about the price of gold in general. It's going to go up. If it dips, you buy more. If it goes up, you buy more. And it doesn't matter what currency you're in.
Okay, this one is from Alustune, and just to give you some insight here, he's talking about a video they stumbled upon on YouTube, so I quickly looked at it before I called you here. The name of the video is Whatever America Is, It Needs to Be Closed Down and Reopened Under New Management, which is a great name. And he says that at 2:20 into the video, the creator claims that it's possible for the powers that be to track precious metals via satellite into your home or property. He wants to know your take on that. I'll just give mine. Essentially, that entire 30-minute video is about tyranny in a big brother police state, and basically the uploader is just saying that the government knows where you are, and we know that to be true, don't we, Andy? They're tracking everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, this particular person, I'm not sure what he's talking about. I'm not a big fan of conspiracy theory in general, meaning when people make those claims, but they're not proved by anything other than innuendo or that kind of thing. But I mean, let's face it, the society is becoming more of a Big Brother society. The House just passed this CISPA bill last week. Everyone made such a big deal when SOPA and PIPA didn't pass a couple of months ago, but they were just waiting for this one, which is even worse, and it passed by a wide margin. So, yeah, they're going to eventually be able to, well, I shouldn't say they will be able to track everything, but they're going to try to track everything, and I'm not sure what he means by they're going to track precious metals into your house. Look, the government ultimately can do almost anything it wants as long as it's around. But, you know, we're going to have major social unrest at some point if they try to go too far, and that's what's happened throughout history.
Yeah, that's right. And just to piggyback, though, here, just to flesh out the conspiracy theory just for a second here, the NSA is building a $1.5 billion cybersecurity data center in Utah. You know, the thing's going to be 1 million square feet. There will be no more pretense of any privacy for American citizens in this country, and the NSA is keeping that really under wraps what it's going to be used for. It's essentially an Orwellian nightmare, and that's just conspiracy facts. So we'll move on here to Brian, who wants to know, do you think it's best now to hold cash for cheaper metals prices in the future?
No, I don't. I mean, look, you can have your own strict strategy of dollar cost averaging if it makes you feel good, but my strategy is it's not an investment. It's a matter of converting your wealth into something that's going to preserve its value. Now, it may turn out to be a good strategy to hold your cash because we may wake up tomorrow and silver is $1 lower and gold goes to $15.50. But you may also wake up tomorrow and something horrible happens and silver is $50 an ounce and there's none for sale. So, I mean, I have never ever once cared about the price when I bought. Sure, I have bought on dips. And sometimes I bought on breakouts, which, of course, in precious metals has been a difficult strategy with the cartel around. But again, it's not about investments. If you're buying mining stocks, that's a different story. You know, you have to think in terms of what price you're buying. But with precious metals, it has to do with ounces, and you just never know when you're going to have a supply shortage, like we had last September, like we had a year ago. In fact, today we're talking on the 1-year anniversary of the silver massacre. And I could tell you that a year ago, just before that massacre, every bullion dealer in America was out of coins. And that will happen again soon, just not sure when.
Okay, Andy, so we're running short on time, so my apologies to Mike and Bribo in the UK who's asking about VAT. We're going to finish up here with Steve and Joe, and Steve is asking how long before the bad guys or good guys have to go to mining on the moon or asteroids for precious metals, and at what price is this feasible? You know, as cockamamie as that sounds, Andy, as nutty as that sounds, as you probably know, Slate.com is reporting that James Cameron and 2 top Google execs are involved in a project such as this. The headline is Group Plans to Mine Asteroids for Gold and Silver. That sounds like absolute propaganda to me. That can't possibly be feasible.
They are idiots, and I don't even want to address this question. Not the person who asked the question, but the people claiming that they're going to go into space and find stuff. Okay.
Yeah, it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd. Okay, so Joe, we're gonna finish up with Joe here, Andy, and Joe's asking, when will the criminal paper price break $50 and hold?
That's your answer is good as mine. Look, I mean, from a technical and a fundamental perspective, everything is set up for this to happen. But again, that $50 level, and you'll see it in my piece today, and I mean, it's the ultimate level. It's what I call the ultimate quadruple top breakout, because you're going back to the first break of $50 back 150 years ago when they made all the big discoveries out in the West. That is the level that was 1980. That was the level last year. it is the line in the sand that probably breaks the entire cartel. So it's going to take a series of political and economic events to happen. It's not just going to happen easily unless some crazy black swan event happens, which could. But your guess is as good as mine. I would not be surprised if it was this year, but I certainly would be surprised if it takes more than a few years to happen.
All right, Andy. Well, we really appreciate your time. We really slugged through a lot of questions here, and I know people really enjoy hearing from you because you have such passion, and it cuts through every single time. Tell people how they can find your blog, will you please?
Right, milesfranklin.com, and just go to the top there. You can put your email and get it in for free, as well as David Schechtman, who also does a daily blog. Also, they're archived there if you don't want to get the email.
I don't push you guys. I don't get your phone number out there. But look, bottom line, there's just a few vendors from whom I buy gold and silver. Miles Frankiln is one of them. So if people want to get a decent price on physical silver bullion, they don't have to mess around with numismatics. Why don't you give them the phone number and tell them who they can talk to so they can put in an order? Because I know you guys you don't have an internet-type website. People don't put the orders through. You got to talk to somebody in person.
Right, and that said, we're actually getting close on the internet capability of our website, so I'm not sure when it will be, but I would be surprised if by the end of the year we're not doing something. But if you call 800-822-8080, that's our office in Minnesota, all of our brokers can handle all of your questions, whether it's about the business, about gold and silver in general, or if you want quotes. We do have experts in-house on numismatics as well if you have questions, so ask away.
All right, Andy, thanks a lot.
Sure, we'll talk to you soon, Sean.
Take care. Bye.